The official meaning of masking is somebody who hides their autistic traits in order to appear more neurotypical. But there are so many reasons why this happens and why masking is used often as a coping or survival mechanism by autistic people. But it is most definitely more common based on medical research in women than men. This is a nuanced topic, and what I am going to discuss today does not mean that there are not issues and difficulties and problems that men face, both neurotypical and neurodiverse men. This is just discussing this one particular topic on what can cause masking and why is it worse in women. Now, the majority of masking starts from a young age and normally gets progressively more used until the person is older and either is diagnosed or just continues into life, but can often result in extreme burnout and a breakdown of that person's mental health. This tends to stem from the desire to fit in, and as a person is growing up, whether that's in preschool or secondary school or in the workplace, people with autism tend to realise that they don't fit in. I definitely knew that I didn't fit in from an extremely early age, and I spent so much of my time watching other people and people who made friends and big friendship groups trying to figure out what it was that they did and how they acted in order to fit in and be normal, because I definitely didn't feel normal. I didn't understand why, and I was a late diagnosed autistic. However, I had that overwhelming feeling of not knowing something that it felt like everybody else knew or understood constantly. So fitting in is one of the big reasons. However, it can also be negative reinforcement, whether that is from the people surrounding the individual, parents or teachers. It is, for example, a child who may stim to self-regulate and then being told by somebody else that they need to stop that action, or that that action makes them strange, or that it's weird, which they are made to feel like they should not be doing due to it not being the norm, is something that can cause the person to begin masking, because they take on board what that person has said and then they try to avoid doing that thing. But in, for example, the case of somebody who stims to self-regulate, if you take away that stimming and that self-regulation, that will often lead to more problems down the line, and this is why we end up in a burnt out state. Now, why is this worse for women than it is for men? There are many different reasons, and masking and women and the late diagnosis issue in women all are kind of connected. I think that we all know that in society, regardless of where you stand, we understand that women are often, from a very young age, made to believe that they need to be put together, sensible, pretty, well behaved. Boys are often given more leeway in terms of behaviour. You often hear boys will be boys, boys are supposed to be boisterous, boys can be a little rebellious, whereas women are seen as rude if they backchat, cheeky, they are seen as not being sensible. They are often told that they mature faster than boys, so that kind of is used as a reason to excuse boys' behaviour who may be of the same age as the girl. So she's expected not to act in such a way, but boys are kind of allowed to get away with it. And that's just how society as a whole has been for a long time. But when you look at this in the terms of the autistic individual, especially because autism in itself was based on boys, and for a long time, like most medical research, it was boys and examples of boys' behaviour and how autism traits represent in a boy, that so many women, it was some medical professionals for a long time didn't even believe that women could have autism. And so as a kind of self-preservation and self-survival, women and girls really didn't have much choice. They had to try and fit in because they were not going to get the help or support they needed. They were probably not going to get the diagnosis, and they most certainly were not going to get the same kinds of excuses that were given for their behaviour. And also, men and women do display different autistic traits. A lot of this is down to masking, however. For example, being antisocial, not necessarily wanting to mingle or talk, is seen as a trait in autistic boys. Can be very openly antisocial, very openly not want to communicate and just enjoy their own things. However, with girls, there is a pressure to not be rude, and so they would find that trying to fit in, make friends, is the best way to survive. They may prefer their own company, they may find it extremely difficult. So it's something that women often would be marked down for if it was asked if they have any friends or they speak to people, communicate, and it would often be then decided that they couldn't be autistic because they did in fact communicate with people, they did have some friends, not all, but some, and this was through masking, because using their experiences, watching other people and copying what those individuals were doing and how those individuals were acting is something that had helped women with autism get to a certain point in life. The problem with that is masking takes up an extreme amount of energy, and whether it was that you'd be masking in school and in public settings, but then at home would have complete meltdowns that then teachers and doctors just were not seeing, because there was that mask trying to keep the facade of what society wanted us to act like, but that can only last so long. Or it was that the individual is able to do it for a certain length of time. Maybe they get to working age, and then the accumulation of trying to mask getting through school, everything just hits them, and they have a complete meltdown, burnout, and that's often when they get to the point where they end up getting their diagnosis. This is not me shitting all over autistic men or even men in general. These are just facts, and it is something to consider when we talk about women and men, like diagnosed autistic people, masking. This is just a simple what is masking and how does it impact women more, but I will do a more detailed video in relation to my own masking experience. So please let me know if you'd like to see this. Please leave comments down below. Like I always say, please try to avoid any hate or bullying of anybody in the comments below, and subscribe if you would like to subscribe, and I will see you again soon. Bye.